Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It is great to have you here with us today, joined by Matt Hladek, the editor and publisher of thespun.com, and a dear friend who covers the NFL for thespun.com. From a macro perspective, from up high, I cover it from a micro perspective. A lot of news that we want to talk about, but I want to start a place I bet a lot of people aren't looking at. We know about Tom Brady. We know about Davante. Yes, we're going to talk about those in a minute, Matt. But Richard Seymour, a man lauded, one of the good guys in the NFL, also additionally becomes an owner with the Raiders. And I don't think you can add too many winners or guys that understand the game, guys that look at the game differently. He certainly did. And then you add a person of his character, a guy that was called one of the good guys in the NFL. I think that was another wise move by Mark Davis. Will you give me your thoughts on the Richard Seymour edition, please?
Sure, I think that obviously he's another expatriate, but he's a guy who has those Raider ties and is a part of the Raider family already. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a natural fit. And I kind of lean more, I lean in the direction that you're going in. Having him, having a Tom Brady, listen, it doesn't assure you of anything of having him in ownership, but it can never hurt to have guys with that experience, have guys that have won at the highest level. And in Seymour's case, understand the franchise, understand the culture, understand the fan base. I think that's pretty much almost always universally a good thing.
Let's talk about the dent left by Davante because I don't think when I say the dent, it's going to sound like, oh my God, what are the Raiders going to do without him? They're better without him. He didn't want to be here. Um, there was a lot of frustration. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, we've been telling you since this drama, we have a deep dive coming on everything that happened with Davante. It's going to come out during the bye week. And we are going to do another one of our absolute deep dives. We're going to take you through private conversation that I had with him and we're going to hear from what it was some of his teammates thought throughout the process. When were the warning signs? Because I shared with you, Matt, back in his first year, oh, this isn't good. I mean, I was sharing things with you because we're friends away from football. And we're going to get into all of that. So I'm not going to get into all that, but other than just keep your eyes out for the bye week. Very long, very detailed article. But the dent I'm talking about is players, especially ones that are consuming like a Davante, they can suck the life out of a room. And I don't think sometimes people think about that, do they?
No, not necessarily. I think that's something that you mostly tend to focus just on the on the tangible kind of on-field impact of a guy like that. I think another important thing when you talk about it is this. Listen, the Raiders have been playing without him the last couple of weeks because he was injured, and they were also kind of holding him out, I'm sure, with the trade talks that were going on, of course. So it's not like they haven't played without him. But now he's gone, and by trading him, you're admitting that acquisition didn't work out the way you'd hoped. You're have an eye towards the future. This is where I think it's imperative on your team leaders, your Max Crosby's and other guys like that, and your coaching staff led by Antonio Pierce to kind of keep things together so that you're still competitive now. And when I say competitive, I'm not saying necessarily be a playoff team this year or anything like that. I'm saying that you're in every week and you're fighting to win, and it's a competitive product on the field where you feel like at the end of the season, like there was some progress made or you're building towards something that's what you'd hope for in the future. So I think that's sort of dent because you kind of know from but outsiders can see it. And when you're on the roster, you're like, hey, like this guy's not here. We made this trade. We already have Christian Wilkins out with an injury. Are we going to be looking so much to the future that other guys are going to get moved before, in the next couple of weeks? I don't know. Those are all questions that, get asked or players think about. So to me, I think what needs to happen is I think your leaders you have to step up, your experienced vets, your coaches got to make sure that everything stays together and that you're still putting a legitimate product on the field every week.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so I want to go to Mark Davis. You know this. I have been critical of him at times, but I have very much watched him ascend as an owner, grow into his role. I have immense respect for Mark Davis because, and I understand fans are frustrated. It's all about winning, period, nothing else. I respect that from this fan base because that's what the franchise has sold them, just win, and they haven't done that. But as I watch him grow as an owner, and he is. He is. His dad, and I'm not attacking Al. Al did so many wonderful positive things, but it wasn't like Al groomed him and prepared him to be an owner. And as I watch him grow into the role, I'm more and more impressed. And I want to talk to you about a couple things with Mark Davis. First off, he openly talks about, you know what, Tom Brady, he's not going to play quarterback for us, but he, can help us pick our next one. I think it's smart. He's listening to football people. He's going to pay attention to football people. Richard Seymour, we just talked about it, one of the good guys in the NFL. He now joins an ownership group. Tom Brady, the greatest competitor, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. I think when you add good people and you're willing to listen to them, it says a lot about an individual. I don't believe. Let me go back and rephrase it this way. He's not Jerry Jones, who at least Jerry played the game like his dad, but now Jerry is blind to his blind spots. He doesn't see them, in my opinion. Mark Davis sees he acknowledges them. I think he continues to show maturation as an owner, and I'm surprised he's not getting more respect than what I think he's earned. I'd love your thoughts on Mark Davis.
Well, getting to your Jerry Jones point, I was thinking of the same thing. From an outside perspective, it doesn't necessarily seem like Mark Davis wants to always get the credit and always get the spotlight the way that Jerry Jones always kind of wants to be the center of attention and always wants,
Right.
the credit when things are going well. In terms of getting more respect, I think around the league or more respect from fans or whatever, I think it does come down to winning. It comes down to establishing that continuity, like we've talked about here on the show in the past, and finally winning. And not just having a playoff year like 2021 or 2016, but actually becoming a year in, year out competitive franchise. Once that happens, I think you'll see some of the narrative shift on Mark Davis. Until that happens, you're kind of going to get a lot of people saying, oh, the same old Raiders, or, they're spinning their wheels, things like that. But I do think that there are some encouraging signs, at least from the outside. Now it's about how are you going to turn that into victories on the field?
Totally, 100%. And you know what? This is something that I really admire about Mark. As I've gotten to know him, he is a realist, and I respect that. And he knows if I win, everything's fixed. And if I don't, even if does get fixed, no one's going to notice it. So there's nothing to just fix it. I love that approach to him. All right, let's talk about Tom Brady. I have reported since the rumors first started about a year ago that he was going to get into ownership, that he will have a big voice. And it's not because he's coming in, I want a big, he's coming in because Mark Davis respects him. They're very close friends. Mark Davis is going to listen to him. I think that's a good thing to give a player like him a big voice. What do you think his voice is going to look like with the Raiders?
I think, Mark Davis basically essentially said that he could have input on picking the next franchise quarterback. So we're going to assume that is going to be a thing. Not that, he's going to do all the scouting or do all things, but he might have some type of stuff on character or intangible things or, other input that's important. I think there will be a voice. Again, not necessarily on Tom Brady's going to be going to games and scouting college players or in the making every pick and have the final say in the war room on draft night. But I think there will be insight into what works in the NFL from his perspective, what kind of players you want, what kind of structure you want, what you want to pursue, what might not be working if Tom Brady, observes an issue or becomes aware of something. I think that's the kind of input you're going to see. Is it a guarantee of him, being part of a franchise savior for the Raiders or somebody who really helps them turn it around? No, there's nothing, can't guarantee anything, but I think that's the kind of role that you're going to see him take, where he's going to be somebody that Mark Davis leans on, just to kind of get that feel of what a winning, successful year in, year out NFL franchise and culture looks like.
Yeah, I don't think this is a very competitive man. And I think there's a lot of John Elway in him, that the more he competes, the more that, feels those juices. I think he's going to want to be more and more involved. He's also doing the television end of it, but I think he's going to have a very, very big voice in several areas of this franchise. All right. I want to get to a couple other things that have nothing to do with the Raiders. Jerry Jones went off on a couple of radio guys, which made no sense to me. Now, listen, I don't have a problem. I'm not defending them just because they're media guys. It made no sense the fight he picked. But to each their own, they can do whatever they want. Clearly, he's feeling the pressure. Now, let's talk about pressure. It's not pressure like a single mom who's 5 days away from being evicted with 2 kids. So let's not pretend that it's any type of real world pressure. But in his world, he's desperate to prove, he is somebody outside of Jimmy, meaning an NFL winner, just like Mark's trying to prove outside of Al. But the pressure's there. And again, my father used to say this, and I believe it, Matt. He said, when you become blind to your blind spots, you become open to failure. And my dad now he didn't use the terms self-scout, but one of the things that Belichick did, I know Jim Tressel did it at Ohio State. Some of the greatest coaches I've ever been around or know, this is how they operated. They would go into their bye weeks and they would tell their defensive coaches. So, for example, the defensive coordinator, I want you to look at our offense and tell me how you would attack it. Defensive line coach, I want you to scout our offensive line. How would you attack it? In the offseason, hey, let's look at all the tape of last year. Did we have any tells? All the tendencies, whatever. They wanted to know. I will never forget this as long as I live. Jim Tressel looked at me one day and said, I scout when I talked about scouting. He goes, Hondo, we scout ourselves as hard as we scout anybody else because it's about us and learning that. And I not only did he do it, but multiple other. Belichick did it, Saban, everybody. When you can't look in the mirror and look at yourself and have a truthful conversation, I'm not even saying you're lying, but because you can't see your blind spots, you open yourself up. Here's my question. Do you think Jerry's looking at everything and lying? Which I don't believe. I don't think he's a liar at all, but lying to himself. Or do you think he really doesn't see it and really what a disaster the Cowboys have become? Because I think we all can agree there is zero excuse every year for the Cowboys to not be good.
I think I see. Here's the thing. I think at this point, I think he does see that they're not a contender right now. Like that they're a floor. I mean, how could you not when you look at what they've done so far this year? Following up the opening win, they have 2 really unimpressive losses to New Orleans and Baltimore. Then they win a couple of games ugly to get to 3-2, and they get smoked at home by the NFC runner-up, a legit contender in the Lions. Which I know as a guy from Michigan, probably still feels weird to hear, but the Lions are, again, a legit contender.
I'm not a Lions fan, but I'm still in shock that they're good because for 50 years they suck.
I don't blame you. It's still kind of crazy to me from the outside. But anyway, I digress. I think Jerry kind of knows that it's not right. Now, whether he wants to or is willing to admit to himself the role he played in that is another thing. But I think when you see a guy have that defensive reaction, not just on the radio with those hosts from 105.3, but also later on in the day, he spoke to Diana Rossini at The Athletic and kind of doubled down on it and really went, like you showed that he didn't learn or rethink what he had done. That's a guy that's feeling the heat. That's a guy that knows that his team's 3-3. They're not what people expected. Doesn't mean their season's over because, the NFC East doesn't look too daunting, so they could stick around that race for a while. It's still 2/3 of the season left, but they're not what they should be. Not for the amount of money they're spending on some of their big-name players, not for the expectations they have. And I think that's where Jerry is feeling the pressure because he knows, listen, this is guys like Jerry Jones. They want there's two things that they want to win. Obviously, they want to win. He wants to win a championship. He wants to prove himself outside of Jimmy Johnson, like you said. He wants the credit. But if there's something that Jerry Jones hates more than he loves winning, and guys like Jerry Jones, they hate to be embarrassed. They hate to be embarrassed. And here's the thing. Right now, the Cowboys are looking like a mess. And he doesn't want to be questioned this much. He doesn't want to be embarrassed. He doesn't want to have, these national talk shows mocking them every single day the way it's been. So that's where it is. It's one thing if you're 5-1 and people are talking about how good you are, but saying, they'll blow in the playoffs, and then they blow in the playoffs, and people, you hear that the same old Cowboy stuff then. Now they're not even playing well in the regular season. So guys like Jerry Jones do not want to be embarrassed, and I think that's where you're seeing this sort of extra defensiveness come in.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense. I 100% agree with you. All right, it's game day. Let's turn our attention. Davante goes to the Jets. Do you think they make the playoffs?
I thought going into the season they would sneak into playoffs finally. I do think there's the possibility for a little bit of a run here because if you look at their schedule, they play some weaker teams. The issue is the Jets have lost to some of those weaker teams. They should have beaten Denver. They could have won the Buffalo or Minnesota games. Not that those are weak teams. They're good teams, but those are games that they could have won. I don't think they make the playoffs, but I think they do push for a playoff spot. I have a weird feeling that, they get some things going there. And listen, if they don't even, they're 2-4, if they don't even get to 8-9 wins and get in the mix, I mean, that's a bad look because Aaron Rodgers has a excellent, cadre of weapons around him, and he has all the, he's got all the things that he's wished for, and he still can't get it done. That's a problem.
Today, Raiders in La La Land. Talk to me. I'm here. Raiders in La La Land. Matt Hladek. Will the Raiders get the Rams today?
It's a winnable game. The Rams are really injured. They're coming off a bye, so a little bit of a longer layoff. However, I think we know that it's probably going to be mostly a Raiders crowd, even though the Rams have more of a following in LA than the Chargers do, so it won't be as extreme. I'm taking the Rams in a close one. I think that Sean McVay and Stafford with some time to prepare will get this win. But listen, this is a game that the Raiders have to have again, and it's not saying like, oh, we have to have it because we have to compete for the playoffs or things like that. They should be thinking, and they got to be thinking, we got to have this so we can kind of have, a little bit of stability going into the toughest part of our schedule coming up, starting with that Chiefs game next week.
Yeah, they're headed to the gauntlet now.
For sure.
After this game, the price of poker, to use a term in Vegas, just went up. Matt Haladic, it is always good to be on with you. It's always good to have you. Can you tell everyone where they can find you when it comes to social media?
Sure. You can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, at Matt Haladic 919, at MATTHLADIK 919. And you'll get, a lot of NFL insights, some MLB playoff stuff, and some college and pro basketball too. But if you come on and talk some ball, I'm always welcoming of Raider fans or fans of any team to come on and hang with me.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.